I'm still here with Rick Spielman. Couldn't get rid of him, but we're also here with Thomas Dimitroff and Eric Eager from Sumer Sports. You know Thomas Dimitroff as the former Falcons general manager. And Eric, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about what Sumer Sports is. Your background, you're a mathematician, so you are probably the second smartest person on this set after Rick. But tell us about Sumer Sports.
Oh, wow.
And I'll tell you myself.
I thought you were going to say Thomas. But, so, yeah, I mean, at Sumer Sports, we're trying to take the best minds in football and help teams build rosters more efficiently. I think there's been so much good work that's been done in football analytics over the last 10, 15 years, but no one's really had this unified theory of being able to put it all together. And we're just blessed to have people like Thomas, who's done it before for 12 years in the NFL, and people like me who ran Pro Football Focus for a while. And yeah, I think it's a really exciting endeavor.
Can I ask just what separates your analytics from others and why it's becoming so important in the league right now with making roster and personnel decisions?
Yeah, I mean, it was really hard. Like, all the other places, I think, are more outsider, right? Like, when I was at PFF, like, none of us had been in the league before, right? And so we were kind of guessing, poking at the edges of the league, got team clients and stuff like that. Having somebody like Thomas who's done this before, who's traded, up for Julio Jones, traded Mohamed Sanu, done stuff like that, made a Super Bowl, won rings as a part of the Patriots. Like, having that experience along with folks that have built the algorithms before, I think gives us an edge.
No, I think that's incredibly important. And obviously, and you know this better than I do, baseball had their moment decades ago, but there are different moving parts, and it's much more difficult to sort of define what those variables are in the NFL. And I think the fact that you are getting closer there, and Thomas, you were able to contribute, is certainly something special. Eric, you mentioned Julio Jones, and I watched some of your talks on YouTube, and I know you're tired of talking about Julio Jones, but people find it so fascinating. But because it was, I don't want to say out of left field, but it was a huge jump to make, and you've talked in the past about how you spoke to Bill Belichick, and he's like, I don't know if this is a great idea, and you did it because you needed the final piece of the puzzle. And we just talked in the previous segment about how A.J. Brown, in some sense, helped the Eagles get over the hump. Can you go through, let me ask you this, how nervous were you in the moments before the trade-up, and then how many years until you felt comfortable with the pick working out?
Well, by the way, we should probably ask Eric what his take on my trade was, because before, we always, Eric and I were working together at the last, in the last couple years that I was in Atlanta, and I developed a really good friendship with him professionally, just because the combination of, he also played football, so he's a mathematician, doctorate in math, and data scientist, but also has a really good understanding of football. One of the main reasons it was a big get for us when we brought Eric in about 6 months ago. Really, really important for our company. So that's a little aside. As far as the trade itself, now it was a big deal for sure. I remember Bill saying to me when I did talk to him, Thomas, you're going to be judged off of this for the rest of your career. We've all read about it in the sense of, I basically said, look, all due respect, we're going to do it. I do remember it being a big thing, and you'll laugh at this because it's hindsight. I remember we were standing arm in arm, myself and Arthur Blank, and we announced that we made the pick, right? And everyone in the world was going crazy. Half the world thought my head was somewhere else, and someone else thought maybe I knew what I was doing, but no one knew. Arthur and I were holding arms hand in hand, and we were watching ESPN, and John Gruden was killing the pick, and every time he literally 13 balls dropped in a row, one after another, after another, after another. And that normally doesn't happen. Arthur's arm drops, and he looks at me, and I'm thinking, oh, my God. And that was the start to the critique on it. So I dealt with it that way. But deep down, I would never do anything different. I know people could say, well, the 12 draft, as you know, it was tough, right? Coming off the 11 draft, we gave away what we did. That was our Peter Kahn's draft. We had no one left from that draft. So there are repercussions. But in the end, I feel very comfortable with what we did. And it's not easy to do. Would I have done it differently if Sumer Sports was my augmentation tool? Yes, I'm going to tell you right now. Would I have signed Julio Jones to the numbers in that third contract? This is where I think Sumer Sports can be very, very helpful, providing guys like us who have been in that seat, and it's not easy. There are so many layers.
Yeah, just a real quick fact. I don't think people realize this, but I started out with the Detroit Lions as a Blesto Combine Scout, and when I got moved up to an area college scout, guess who took my spot? And I got an opportunity to train Thomas Dimitroff.
Yes.
So we both came a long, long way.
Yes.
Since those days. And can you just hit real quickly on the difference in how we approach things, if you want to call us now the old school GMs, to how everybody and all these young guns coming in and really taking a different approach on the win now mentality?
Yeah, like win now mentality. You and I know this, Rick. I mean, it's not easy. We understand it's a not for long league, and we hear that all the time. And it's amazing because talking to our contemporaries, who even though they're younger, they're still our contemporaries. They all know that it's short-lived, and they also know that there's a lot more involved, Rick, than you and I coming in the contract numbers that we had when we first got in to what is coming out the gate for some of these general managers. And I won't pinpoint it, but when someone's making $6 million a year as a general manager in the first year, that's a big deal. So there's a lot more riding on the urgency of getting things done, not sitting on your hands, being aggressive on making moves. Again, Jeff Shadia, you were referencing that article recently. A lot of people are talking about that. People are not just sitting around doing what maybe we did in Detroit as we looked at the board and we worked through it and we sat.
Magnetic board. It wasn't electronic back then. We didn't even have computers when we started.
We weren't. And I think now, I don't believe you can sit on your hands anymore in today's world. You just can't. You have to be aggressive. And it's a big thing. It's not always comfortable because people are always going to scrutinize you, right? And guys like Eric who have the data side who are going to look at every one of these moves. And I would love to pass it over to him from a consumer sports perspective. What our algorithms are doing are allowing us to look at those trades and really hone in on them to let them sort of reveal to us and the owner and the head coach. Of course, that's important to see exactly what we're going to do with this trade.
Is it getting easier to sell analytics now to these younger general managers? And I know probably when we were coming up and analytics started to come in place, it was trying to sell the coaches on the analytics, trying to sell some of the older scouts. Well, hey, I saw this and that's what he is, and not utilizing all the tools that you have out there available to you now to make even better decisions.
Yeah, it's easier. I think that there is some pushback though, because obviously the game changes and analytics needs big sample sizes. So sometimes you do have to use the subject matter experts to sort of, smoothen out, some of the conclusions. But, I think what we can do is help general managers get reps in places like, if we gave you a simulator where you could simulate trades over and over and over again. So when it comes down to Thomas has one, signature trade in his career. What if he ran through that 24 times on a simulation before he had to execute it the first time? Like, that's what we want to be here for. Like, you guys have so much expertise. What we want to do is help you apply that expertise more efficiently and more often. And, before, you guys back in the draft room would have to simulate the draft over and over and over again. It'd take a month to get through 30 of them. And now we at Consumer Sports hopefully can give you 30 of them in an hour. And then that can help you sort of sharpen your already great expertise and move on to other problems.
Can I just ask one question real quick? And I'm sorry, on the analytics. What areas, because you have, the height, weight, speed, and that was the old school way, and you got a hand size arm. But are you implementing like the psychological testing into your algorithms? Are you integrating all the other statistics, run after catch, things like that to help improve the decision-making process?
Both directly and indirectly, right? So directly we can look at a psychological test, but indirectly we can look at the tracking data and say, does this linebacker bite on play action? Does he flow to the run? Is he a guy like Dante Hightower, who I know, with the Patriots, is he a guy that both doesn't bite on play action and flows really well to the run? Is he the unicorn there? And then you can sort of look at, because I know, scouts love traits, and those are important to, projecting college to pro. Can we quantify those traits with tracking data so that you guys can go back to the lab and find new ones? That's kind of where I think analytics can come in and codify a lot of the greatness that comes from evaluators' brains, and then you guys can move on to other things, and sort of we can backfill as you go. And again, trying to allow you to apply your expertise more efficiently and more often.
Can I just add quickly for perspective? And you know this. I used to sit back there and the first 4 years with your owner, and mine was Arthur Blank, of course, and I would tell Arthur, I have 12 scenarios, Arthur, and I felt like proud as a peacock. Yeah. This is what we're going to do. This algorithm that we're working on provides millions of scenarios, unfathomable to the human mind, really. Obviously, you don't have to weigh through all those million, but it will provide you with 1, 2, or 3 of the top consumer sports recommended. And what's really important, this, it's about juxtaposition, right? You and I, it was always about that. You're not going to take just what Sumer says face value in year one. You're going to take what, in your case, was the Minnesota Vikings, and you're going to take everything that your whole group put together, right? And then you're going to take Sumer Sports, and you're going to look at what we provided through all the IP that you might have provided us in our own IP, and you're going to juxtapose it, and you're going to get more and more comfortable as you evolve. And that's something that I know from my perspective. I've talked to Eric a lot about it. You can't force feed. This can be revolutionary. I really believe it. I'm not. When we were out pitching people were like, Thomas, you become a salesman. I'm like, I do, because I truly believe in something like this to have helped us along the way, because it's not a black box, brother. It is about augmentation.
We got 1 minute left, Rick. So I'm gonna take the microphone from you, because you will keep these guys here all day.
Maybe he can use him so he can get better comps when we talk about draft comps.
So one last question for you, Thomas, and then we'll get out of here. So I understand everything you're talking about, Eric, and the importance of it. And Thomas, clearly you buy in. But what if you love a guy? What if your gut says, I need this guy here instead of waiting around? How do you talk the computer into doing what you think's right, even though your gut may not agree with the numbers?
You don't. You override it, and you say, we've done our work on this, and these are the reasons that we are going to override. Just because you're overriding doesn't, in any way, and you can comment on this, doesn't mean that our algorithm is wrong. Far from that. You can comment on that.
Yeah, everything's an ensemble, right? So, like, it gets tough, right? When you're a former evaluator, you're like, when you want to be an evaluator as a GM, when you really have to be a decision maker, right? And so you allow analytics, you allow your scouts, you allow outside input, and you try to average over that to make a correct decision. It's never going to be the analytics that are the only person or only entity that gets a vote.
It's a tool that helps you make better decisions, not a decision maker.
Oh, thank you. He's.
I knew you were going to come back with that. That's very good. You want to write? You want to be our writer?
He's looking for a job, Thomas and Eric. All right.
Almost jobless.
I get it.
Listen, follow Thomas at Simmer Sports on Twitter, or visit simmersports.com for the best football and analysis in the market. And listen to the Simmer Sports podcast with Eric Eager and Thomas Dimitroff. Airs on Mondays and Wednesdays on your favorite content platform. We are going to take a break, probably till tomorrow, as it turns out. We had a great podcast. Thanks for joining us here at Hence Park in Phoenix, Arizona. First Super Bowl 57, Brian Wilson. Mr. Spielman, Rick, Thomas Dimitroff, Eric Eager, thank you.